I wasn't allowed to be a human. I was a topic of conversation and gossip and punchlines. It's just a few drops, but yes, we do consume each other's blood on occasion for ritual purposes. I know I can't protect them forever. Hi, I'm Megan Fox, and this is my Glamour Unfiltered. The first time around when I was dealing with astronomical levels of fame, that in itself is a type of trauma. That level of fame is a traumatic event. My psychological type is not an introvert, but fame made me introverted. And if you're delicate or sensitive at all, I think it's a really hard thing to go through. And so I shut down a lot and sort of retreated from everything and was essentially in hiding for several years of my life. And then due to unforeseen events, sort of got dragged back out into the spotlight again. I think I'm so much better equipped now to deal with it and to experience it in a way where I can actually enjoy some of it. I was ahead of the Me Too movement by almost a decade. I was sort of speaking out against some of the abusive, misogynistic, patriarchal things that were going on in Hollywood back in 2008 and 2009, way before people were ready to embrace that or tolerate it. And I actually got ridiculed for doing it. And I think, people just had time to review that, in retrospect, to look back and go, oh, she was actually saying a lot of the same things that all of these people are saying now, and she was sort of persecuted for that. And it was probably not the most loving, kind, transcendent way to deal with me. I didn't feel like I was accepted by much of the feminist community. Me being a mirror for those particular people, whatever I provoke in them is not something that they can digest very well. And so that comes back on me as they reject me for those reasons. I just didn't think that I was a very sympathetic victim, and so I didn't want to speak out because I didn't feel like it would be received in a positive way. And I still don't think it would be. I still do a lot of things that are so provocative for some reason, regardless of which community it is. I was being celebrated as being a feminist until I had the nerve to call my boyfriend daddy, and then a lot of people got upset about that, which I think is a funny conversation to actually have, because that goes into allowing women to be women, allowing us to experience what we want and like what we like. That is feminism. I don't know if the psychological breakdown was strictly related to being objectified. I think it was more related to just being dehumanized. I have social media, but I don't personally use it. I have somebody who posts for me, and I decide what I want to say, but I don't actually physically do it myself because I think it's sinister. I think it's evil. And I don't think people understand. We've come to this place where we grasp bullying is bad. But then when it comes to a celebrity, all of that is thrown out the window. Maybe it was worse back then. I actually don't think so. I think with the invention of social media, it's so accessible now that it's much worse. But it was more the negativity that was constantly being spewed towards me or directed towards me. It doesn't even require somebody to actually say something directly to me. It doesn't require me to read it. But when so many people around the world are thinking about you or have negative thoughts or intentions towards you, that energy permeates me, it penetrates me. I don't have boundaries and walls for that. I am still human. I am still fragile in that way. I can feel. And that was more of the struggle. It wasn't related to anything specific. It was just that I wasn't allowed to be a human because I was a topic of conversation and gossip and punchlines. I'm just so much more grounded, and I identify so much more with, not with my ego, more with my soul. And I'm able to separate a lot of the things that are happening and realize that they're not real. Everything that I experience as a struggle or painful is an opportunity for growth, an opportunity for a lesson, for learning, for transcending. And so my perception is different, my approach is different, and that allows for my experience to be different, obviously. I think there's a fear that's very present, so no one wants to be the person to do something that then it comes back on them that they're outed or they're getting canceled. In acting, at least in that part of Hollywood, it has been one way for so long. If a woman comes on a set and is like, I don't like this shot, I don't like this scene, I don't like this dialogue, we have to work on this, we have to change this. That's still perceived as her being a high maintenance bitch. Versus when a man comes on a set and says the same things, everybody's like, oh, fuck yeah, you're right, no, you're right, no, you're right. We gotta rewrite this scene, it's not right. He's respected as an artist, he's respected as knowing what he wants. That's still very present. The regret I have is that my personality is so lost on people. Like, my sense of humor is lost, my intelligence is not acknowledged. Sometimes I feel like I just waste my energy giving myself to people who don't understand and won't appreciate. But I've never had anything where I look back now and I'm like, I really shouldn't have done, I really shouldn't have said, because even the terrible things caused me to do so much work on myself. I mean, that's what he says. He says that he, and I do believe this, was like, even the day before was trying to basically quit the movie, and his best friend Rook, his drummer, and then also his manager Ashley were both like, but your scenes with Megan Fox, and he was like, fuck it, I'll get on the plane. And I had a reverse experience where I didn't know why I was taking the movie, I just knew something about, I needed to do it for some reason. And then when I was in the table read, there was still one character that hadn't been cast, and I was like, who's playing that character? And they were like, oh, Machine Gun Kelly. And I like kind of knew the name, but didn't. So I'm like, Machine Gun Kelly? I like look it up. And I was like, oh, fuck, we're gonna be in so much trouble. Because he's literally like my exact physical type that I've been manifesting since I was 4. I'm also 4 years older than him. So I think I made him, my thoughts and intentions grew him into the person that he is. Who knows what he would have looked like or been like if it wasn't for me. I guess drank each other's blood might mislead people, or like people are imagining us with like goblets and we're like Game of Thrones drinking each other's blood. It's just a few drops, but yes, we do consume each other's blood on occasion for ritual purposes only. It is used for a reason, and it is controlled where it's like, let's shed a few drops of blood and each drink it. He's much more haphazard and hectic and chaotic, where he's willing to just like cut his chest open with broken glass and be like, take my soul. Let me bleed on you.
That happens?
It doesn't not happen, let me tell you. Maybe not exactly like that, but a version of that has happened many times. The most romantic thing he's ever done for me, that's hard to say. This is gonna mean nothing to people that don't study this, but he has so much Piscean energy. He's so romantic. It would be hard to say, but we keep this journal that we've kept since the day we met each other, and it's just filled with like our thoughts and our feelings and our poetry. I think Pam and Tommy were twin flames. I think that they were soulmates. Kurt and Kourtney is a darker version of the same thing. So I think when you find people that come together, that whose souls have known each other, who have like traveled here to do this again, there's something undeniable about that. And again, it can provoke a positive feeling in you, or it could provoke a very negative feeling, because it is a mirror of what you don't have or think that you don't want. I just think that it's hard to ignore that kind of a connection and that kind of love, regardless of if you find it toxic or not. That's irrelevant. We don't have like a lot of double dates. We're not doing that. Between all of us, there's like 900 kids. So people aren't really like double dating out here a lot. They're like magnetically, they're like this all the time. So nobody's like really interacting with them too much, because they're just like stuck. They're stuck together like this. This is a very intense relationship, and it's cyclical, and so it gets to these points where like we have to do cleansings. I had gotten to a point where I was like, we need an adrenaline injection of God in this relationship. And so we went to Costa Rica, and we had Peruvian shamans who administered the ayahuasca, and we each went in with different questions that we wanted the medicine to answer for us. And it was incredibly intense. The whole experience, like the fasting leading up to it, the diet changes, you're not allowed to drink water after 5 p.m. You are in the middle of the jungle. And I had my questions and my goals, and then he went and he sat to be given his ayahuasca, and everybody else was being given 1 glass of ayahuasca because it was our first night. And the shaman says something in her native language, and then the interpreter is like, we need to give you 3 doses because you have such a dark, sad spirit standing behind you, like an actual like demonic spirit hovering over him. to no one's surprise, anyone that knows him, we're all like, no, when I tell that story, nobody's like, oh my God, everybody's like, mm-hmm. And then what? Because we all know that. It bound us together in a way. Like, that's an experience that such a few amount of people have in general, to do it together as a couple. And then also our journey that we were doing, it was affecting the other couples, the other people who were there. So it was prophetic in a lot of ways, and it confirmed a lot of things for us that I needed to know or I needed to feel. It opened a door for a lot of healing for me from a personal experience I had had with him, that allowed us to get to a place where we were now seeking the right outlets to heal moving forward, if that makes sense. It is hard, because I travel for long periods of time, and they have to attend school, which is what it is. You know, I wish that I could take them out to travel with me. It would make things a lot easier. I cry often. Every new moon, usually, I get in a bath and cry a lot about it, because it is hard, not because of pressures that anybody else or society puts on you, but it is just hard being separated from them in that way. They are my DNA. Like, we share spirit, we share blood, they shared my heartbeat. Like, it's hard to not feel obligated to be with them all the time, or to constantly feel like I'm not doing a good enough job. But I'm also separated from their father, so I can only have them half of the time. That just is what it is. And in some ways that allows me to have moments for myself where I can live my life as me, not just always being someone's mother, and that's nice. Noah started wearing dresses when Noah was about 2. And I bought a bunch of books that sort of address these things, that address a full spectrum of like what this is. And some of the books are written by transgender children. Some of the books are just about how you can be a boy and wear a dress. Like, you can express yourself through your clothing however you want. And that doesn't even have to have anything to do with your sexuality. So from the time they were very young, I've incorporated those things into their daily lives, so that nobody feels like they are weird or strange or different. I can't control the way other people react to my children. I can't control the things that other children that they go to school with have been taught and then repeat to them. So that has been a journey. Yes, I do. That's also why I don't really put my children on Instagram or social media. Like, I'm so proud of my kids. Noah is an unbelievable pianist. Noah can learn, Mozart's concerto in an hour and just absolutely shred on the piano. I want people to see that. But I also don't want the world to have access to this gentle soul and say all the things that we all know that they're gonna say. I send my kids to a school where the other parents are similar in their beliefs, so the kids aren't, Noah's 9, and the other kids aren't really on the internet the same way that like most kids are. So they know that their parents are famous, but their knowledge of it is very limited. I knew that when they were very young, that I wanted to try to protect them however I could, and a lot of that had to do with limiting their exposure to the internet. So far, we've done a really good job and like maintained their innocence in a lot of ways. But I know I can't protect them forever. Getting enough sleep, that's obvious, but really being diligent about that. When I lose sleep, I can really feel the effect that has on my mental health, and traveling for work and being on different time zones and how that affects my pineal gland. I don't smoke cigarettes. I never do recreational drugs. I'm always completely sober. I don't even drink a glass of wine. I'm not saying you have to be like that. I'm saying for me, that's how I feel the best. But also self-care is enough quiet time to be able to connect to my super conscious, my higher conscious, to connect to God, to connect to spirit. And this lifestyle makes that very difficult sometimes, and I do feel very lost when I'm not able to do that. I avoid my phone as much as I possibly can all the time, but there are times where I avoid it completely. The same thing with anything that has like an LED light in it. And I just go back to what our bodies were made for, which is to be in nature and to be silent within ourselves. Every day, if I have the chance, I'll watch a Harry Potter movie. And they never get old to me. The same thing with Lord of the Rings, like, or a Fantastic Beast. Like, that's always what I'm gonna put on above anything else, because it just gives me a place to escape into fantasy and into magic. Sometimes it's honestly, it just comes down to like where it's shooting. Like, I've chosen things because it was shooting in an exotic location before, and I felt like that place was gonna change my life. I did this with a movie in Africa before, and it did. And they're also the kinds of movies I like making because I'm really good with my physical, I'm good with my body, I'm good with stunt fighting, learning weapons, things like that. And that gives me a place to express my physical energy. I don't really enjoy being locked in a studio in a room doing a lot of dialogue. Not everything has to be a B-side where you're like pushing for critical acclaim. I'm really not bothered by that. So I'm not always like on the lookout for my Oscar nomination. I really don't care. It's like, I like these big fun movies. I just think I would like to be remembered as somebody who was brave, who was unafraid to explore and become myself regardless of anyone else's commentary. But I also want my legacy eventually to be someone who helped others, either helped others to find themselves in a similar way, or helped others to feel love, to feel self-love, and to be able to give that love to their own children and to their own family, because that spreads, obviously, and that's what we're all missing right now.